This is the story of the Pong Su, a North Korean freighter carrying 150 kilograms of heroin worth over $100 million, slicing through the Bass Strait on April 15, 2003, and creeping toward the southern coast of Australia. The voyage had been long and winding, and everyone aboard knew the stakes. The ship had sailed from Nampo in North Korea on February 25th with 30 crew under Captain Song Man Sun. Not every man on board was there to steer or scrub decks. Political Secretary Cho Dong represented the Korean Workers' Party, watching for dissent and enforcing loyalty to the regime. The vessel itself was odd, a timber carrier built in Japan in 1980, 106 meters long and about 4,000 gross tons, modified with converted ballast tanks for extra range and a hidden bulkhead below the crew spaces, a shadow compartment for a shadow mission. The first leg took the Pong Su to Yantai in eastern China, where she loaded 5,000 tons of feldspar, then back toward North Korean waters, making port at Cheon-do, a small island off the mainland. There, two men came aboard, Ta Wong and an unidentified companion. Investigators would later claim that these men smuggled on 150 individually wrapped 1-kilogram bricks of heroin, hiding them within that false bulkhead. North Korean drug activity had been bubbling for decades, starting in the 1970s with diplomats caught moving small quantities. By the mid-1990s, seizures were bigger and more frequent. Defectors described state orders to cultivate opium, collective farms in places like Yonsa, Musan, and Ansong, and a shift from experimental plots to scaled production. The picture that emerged was not of a few rogue couriers, but of a system seeking hard currency. With its illicit cargo aboard, the Pong Su headed to Singapore for fuel, then south toward Indonesia. Somewhere in those waters, the ship switched to a flag of convenience, dropping obvious North Korean links and hoisting the flag of Tuvalu. On March 27th, the freighter reached Jakarta and offloaded the feldspar, then cleared port on April 1st, declaring Melbourne as the next stop. At the same time, 3 men flew into Australia from Bangkok: Ya Kim Lam, Kayam Fong Tan, and Chin Kwang Lee. Authorities would later argue they worked for syndicates that stretched across Macau, Hong Kong, and Thailand, maintaining contact with the North Korean smugglers offshore. What they did not know was that the Australian Federal Police had been tipped off through the embassy in Thailand. From the moment they landed, the trio had surveillance on their heels. Their rental car was wired, and teams trailed them across the south coast. North Korea had changed its trafficking model by the late 1990s. Diplomatic couriers faded, and state trading companies took the lead, offering deniability while keeping proceeds close. The Pong Su belonged to one of these entities, the Pong Su Trading Company. Cooperation with foreign criminal groups increased as well. A high-profile defector described Southeast Asian drug bosses visiting Pyongyang and contacts maintained in Japan, Laos, and Burma. The blueprint was simple: move the product on a state-linked ship, then hand off to syndicate partners for distribution inland. For Australia, the transfer point was set: Boggaley Creek, a quiet strip of sand along Victoria's Great Ocean Road, secluded enough to seem invisible, but close enough for a quick drive back to town. The Pong Su slipped into Australian waters on April 7th, taking a wide arc under Western Australia and avoiding major shipping lanes. By the morning of April 15th, she lurked off the Victorian coast. By evening, the weather had turned ugly. Big surf and strong winds hammered the shoreline. The ocean was dangerous, and the plan was strained before it even began. Inside the ship, the heroin bundles had been grouped into 6 packages, roughly 25 kilograms each. The crew loaded the bundles onto a small inflatable powered by an outboard and sent it off with the 2 late arrivals, Ta Wong and the unidentified man. Their job was simple on paper: reach the beach, pass the goods to the shore team, and return to the mothership. What happened next was chaos. According to Australian court records, the inflatable ran into fuel problems and overturned in the pounding surf near Boggaley Creek. 1 man died in the water. Ta Wong reached shore and buried the body, alone and exhausted. The dinghy was useless, and he had no way back to the freighter. 1 package vanished into the sea, but about 125 kilograms made it to land. The shore team scrambled in the dark, jittery, and disorganized. They loaded only 2 packages into their car, about 50 kilograms total, then hid the remaining 75 kilograms near the path above the beach for a later pickup. The Pong Su hovered offshore, waiting for a return that would never come. Wong shivered among the dunes, unsure whether to flee or to hope. At dawn on April 16th, the trap sprang. Police arrested Tan and Lee outside their room in Lorne and found 2 packages of heroin sitting in the trunk of their car, poorly concealed and unmistakable. Lamb was picked up separately near Melbourne. Back at Boggaley Creek, searchers uncovered the shallow grave of the drowned courier, 3 stashed packages along the coastal trail, and Ta Wong himself, cold, hungry, and stranded. With the shore party in custody, every eye turned back to the ship that had started it all. The Pong Su had already pulled away, edging southwest past Wye River, then turning into the Bass Strait and trying to disappear into the traffic lanes. The chase began over choppy water. A Tasmanian police vessel shadowed the freighter while aircraft tracked from above. The net drew tight. The following day, the Royal Australian Navy dispatched HMAS Stuart from Sydney, a modern warship with orders to intercept. In the early hours of Sunday, April 20th, at about 5 a.m., the Stuart boarded the Pong Su. The crew was arrested without a fight, and the freighter was taken under tow toward Sydney Harbour. A brazen scheme had collapsed in a few stormy nights, undone by weather, poor planning, and the steady pressure of a coordinated investigation. What did the Pong Su reveal about North Korean trafficking? First, the architecture of the plan matched a broader pattern from the early 2000s. A state-linked trading company moves the narcotics, then foreign partners manage distribution on land. Similar combinations appeared in cases that touched Taiwan, Japan, and China. Second, the case ignited debate over the level of direct state orchestration. On one hand, moving 150 kilograms suggests approval at some level. On the other, the evidence hinted at a shoestring operation. An aging ship, a tired crew, a malfunctioning dinghy, and a small, poorly coordinated shore team. Some analysts argued that officials might be freelancing to enrich themselves even if the broader system tolerated or encouraged the activity. The heroine's identity posed another puzzle. The seized bricks carried the WO Globe brand that is commonly associated with the Golden Triangle of Myanmar, Thailand, and Laos. That label led some observers to assume the product came from Southeast Asia and that North Korea was acting as transporter and seller. Later, chemical profiling told a different story. Researchers at the University of New South Wales found that the samples did not match typical WO Globe batches. The more likely explanation was that the heroin had been made in North Korea, then packaged to mimic a known brand. The pattern fit a wider playbook: counterfeit currency, imitation consumer goods, fake pharmaceuticals, and now narcotics disguised as someone else's product. After the arrests, authorities berthed the Pong Su in Sydney Harbour. The ship sat there for close to 2 years, costing around 90,000 Australian dollars each month just to keep it tied up and secure. Eventually, the decision came to destroy it. On March 23, 2005, the empty ship was towed about 80 miles offshore. 2 F-111 strike aircraft roared in over the ocean and dropped their ordnance. The Pong Su slipped beneath the waves, the final act in a drama that had stretched across ports, oceans, and borders. The image of those bombs hitting a rust-streaked freighter became a symbol of a season of high-profile North Korean drug cases that had captured international attention. In the years that followed, some officials speculated that the publicity around incidents like the Pong Su pushed North Korean networks to pull back from large drug shipments. The money never stopped being a priority, it simply flowed into other channels. Arms sales to pariah clients, counterfeiting schemes, and increasingly, cyber operations that cost little and promise huge returns. Compared with those ventures, sending an old freighter to a stormy beach with an inflatable and a bag of hope seems outdated and reckless. Yet, the Pong Su remains a remarkable snapshot. It shows how a state can blur the line between national enterprise and criminal hustle, how deniability can be built into every link of the chain, and how a single wave in the wrong moment can bring the whole thing crashing down. From Nampo to Sydney Harbour, through hidden bulkheads and dark beaches, the Pong Su's voyage embodied an era when narcotics and national strategy overlapped at sea. The plan looked clean on paper. Load the bricks, meet the car, vanish into the shipping lanes. Reality was messier. An engine sputtered, a surf break flipped a raft, a man died, and a surveillance team that had been there from the start simply stepped forward and closed the door. The freighter is gone now, sunk into blue water off Australia, but its wake still ripples through the history of covert finance and the strange commerce that props up isolated states.